Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode. We are here live. Appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. This is the off season. Playoffs are still here. It's a bunch of exciting games coming up this weekend. But we got to talk a little bit of Colts football just to keep you guys in touch. We can't lose communication with you guys, but we appreciate you guys for staying tuned with us. Turn on your notice. We see the people are coming in already. Appreciate you guys. But I am Culture Shock. I'm not alone. I got my guy with me, my guy Landon. Landon, how we doing today? Like,
It would help if I unmuted. No, I'm doing great, man. It's a lovely Friday here. It's nice and cold and windy and snowy. Just the weather that I absolutely hate. But the sun's shining. I woke up, so we're having a good day.
amen to that. It's definitely snowing on this side of town as well. You guys stay safe. Put the salt out there. Walk slowly across this snow. Take it granted for me, I did happen to fall the other day, but I am fine. Happened to laugh it off, but it is okay. Black ice is definitely a serious thing. So let's go ahead and talk about the Colts. We are talking about impact players of the Colts for 2023. There's a lot of guys on this roster. The Colts did not have a terrible season, in my opinion. I think the season was very well. I think they exceeded expectations, and I think they had a very good season. It came down to one play. They did not get it, unfortunately, but that does not take away from the guys that made an impact to get them to put them in the position that they were in to get into a fight to the playoffs. So we're going to go down the list. We got three players on offense and three players on defense. Both of us, we're going to go one by one. So I'm going to get mine first, and then Landon's going to go. If he want to share his thoughts on my player, he can do that. If I want to share thoughts on his player, we can do that as well. And if you guys have any players in the comment section, feel free to comment them as well. Your impact players for the Indianapolis Colts. If you are a Colts fan, if not, and you like watching the Colts or you watch Colts football this season, do the same. All opinions are granted. So I'm going to start with my first player on offense. I got to give the flowers for the impact player this year, Zach Moss. Zach Moss took a heavy toll this year with the whole Jonathan Taylor situation and everything coming from Buffalo. This guy exceeded expectations, and he happens to be one of the best running backs this year, in my opinion, in the NFL. And, all credit to him. The guy, next man up is the policy in Indianapolis, and he decided to take that role and run with it, literally. He happened to be, a very explosive runner, and then when Jonathan Taylor came back, he was still doing the same damage he did when Taylor wasn't there. And I think he had a very big impact on this Colts offense and this Colts team in general to put them in position to fight for the playoffs. So that's my first player. I'm going to go with Zach Moss.
Yeah, yeah. Are we both talking about each player?
Yeah, sure, we can. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know, but yeah, I mean Zach Moss was like crucial early on. Like, I mean, you already know, like what you're saying with JT being down, the contract dispute, nobody knew how that was going to play out. And he was like top five of the league in rushing for like a big chunk of the season. So whenever you can have that type of impact coming from like your number two back, and there were a few games that like he straight carried the offense. So yeah, he made a big impact. I would love to see him back again this year, but he might have played too well to price. He might have priced himself out of that. So who
Yeah,
knows?
that's true.
But yeah, it turned out to be a really good move.
Absolutely, man. Definitely shout out to Zach Moss. Best of luck to if he doesn't happen to come to back to Indianapolis. I understand, but if he does come back, it'll be a blessing in disguise. But we do have a good running back group, so it is what it is. Landon, I'm going to get it off to you. What is your first impact player from the Colts going into this season? Well, from last season.
I'm muting it. My bad. Uh, I keep forgetting to hit the unmute button. Uh, yeah, so my first player on the offensive side of the ball is going to be Bernard Ryman. We're talking about a dude who, obviously was a rookie last year. He had his struggles, all that kind of stuff. But then this year, he really he turned into, I would say, borderline a top five left tackle in football. I mean, if you just look up, you just go purely by like pressure percent, like sacks given up, like all that stuff. He's near the top of the league in all those. And I think that to me was the main difference, other than just like the health and guys getting healthy. That's the main difference between last year's offensive line and this year's offensive line was the play of Bernard Ryman. Because whenever you're able to leave your left tackle on an island like that and have him handle those rushers and do it at a Pro Bowl level, then it frees up the rest of the offensive line for their assignments. And I think his growth moving forward is going to be even better. I mean, I think this was just a tremendous year, and I think he was like a huge impact player for this offense.
I agree 100%. Amen to that. Bernard Ryman, and this is a guy that me and shout out to Luke the photographer, Blue Stable, awesome guy, my buddy. We seen it when we went to training camp. Bernard Ryman looked slimmerly. He looked like he more bulkier, than what he did coming in. And his game was very impressive. It's very difficult, playing that position that he plays into the NFL, going up against all these guys with experience and these vets. And I think he held his own a lot of times this year, especially having a guy next to him like Quentin Nelson was the ultimate leader, especially of that force in the front of the offensive line. I think Bernard Ryman definitely took a huge step up this year and definitely gives flowers for his production. And I think he's going to be a very solid tackle moving forward for the Indianapolis Colts. So definitely give a shout out to Bernard Ryman. My next guy I just mentioned is going to be, of course, probably be a little bit cliche, but Quentin Nelson has to be a very impact player for the Colts this year. This dude, of course, he's a Pro Bowler, but this dude is the guy. It's a lot of players from last year that a lot of people thought that he took a step back. But I think this was a huge bounce back season for Quentin Nelson, production wise. The swing tackles are still there, a good impact blocker, and you've seen all those big runs that the Colts had. A lot of that had to do with the offensive line and Quentin Nelson. A lot of that do with the coaching staff for the offensive line. Everything played a factor going into the production from this offensive line that we're used to seeing. And I think Quentin Nelson definitely he definitely bounced back to being to his natural self. So definitely got to give a shout out to Big Q, man. He definitely had a very good year. He deserves all the praise that he's getting. Pro Bowl nod, All Pro, all those things. And hopefully when his top 100 lists come out, that they don't be bogus as they usually are. But I definitely think Big Q is a very impact player this year for me.
Yeah, yeah, it was nice, and that's kind of what I was saying is like the health of the offensive line just kind of bounced back, and freeing up Bernard Ryman, it also allowed Quentin Nelson to go back to his normal self, like he was playing when he had Anthony Costanzo next to him, and that's when we saw his best football. And so I think now we're getting back to that level where he's able to. He's probably like one of the best in the league that I can remember as far as like finding work is what they call it. So like whenever his man like his peripheral vision, his ability just to know where the defensive line is, and his ability to go find work. That's one of his best attributes. And I think this year he was really able to use that to his advantage. And I think, as we get further and further away from the injuries, injury free season, now he's going into next year also with a clean bill of health. Um, yeah, I think he's just going to continue to be the dominant player that he is. I think he's got a few more things he needs to clean up, namely in like the run game. Um, but yeah, other than that, yeah, it's business as usual for Big Q, and that's a good thing for the Colts.
Absolutely. Amen, man. Shout out to Big Q, man. That's my guy. So now we're going to hang it off to you. Who's your second impact player that you want to mention?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to stick on the offensive line thing we're going because that was such a crucial unit for the Colts, and it's Ryan Kelly, the center, where he's really struggled since you kind of saw it towards the end of 2021. Obviously, dealt with all the personal stuff with him and his family, but he really bounced back. Everything seems to be in a really great place for him right now. The talk of retirement, he squashed that right away. So it seems like he's going to be back next year and probably for the foreseeable future, hopefully. But just the play on the field with him was phenomenal. I know he dealt with a few little nagging injuries throughout the year, but you could really tell when he was on the field. At one point in time, he was the highest graded center in the NFL. And whenever you have a guy like that, that is able to help a rookie quarterback like Anthony Richardson going forward, this is a guy that is extremely intelligent. He's able to diagnose blitzes, gets guys lined up. He knows where everybody's supposed to be, and he can really help progress Anthony Richardson as well moving forward. And I think that's a big thing for his development is to have such a steady presence in the center of that offensive line. to anchor down everything. So yeah, Ryan Kelly, fantastic 2023 season. Looking forward to 2024, and hopefully some years after that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey man, shout out to the offensive line. Shout out to Ryan Kelly. And the one thing we both preach consistently is continuity, especially when it comes to the offensive line. You want to have the same group of guys week in and week out on a daily basis, but they did battle a lot of injuries. But that it was good to see that one part, that one moment when they all were together. That you see the fluid motions, everybody getting there, hitting their blocks, and the run lanes was clear. Everything just happened to be what we expect from the offensive line. And Ryan Kelly is definitely a big part of clogging up that middle. And he did his role this year. I definitely think he's another guy that we mentioned. Like I mentioned, Quentin Nelson. After last year, a lot of people thought they regressed and took a step back. But I think this year, Ryan Kelly is another guy to happen to put himself back on the front to what we're used to seeing. Of course, it wasn't 100% perfect, but he had a lot of moments where he was just happened to be that guy. So it was a good thing to see Ryan Kelly going back to what he's used to doing next to Quentin Nelson, then Ryman, all those guys pairing together and having a good blocking unit. So it was good to see Ryan Kelly going back to himself. Hopefully he comes back. Like you said, he's not retiring or he just ended that conversation. So it's good. It's going to be good to see him next year and doing what he's doing. My last guy for the offense is going to be a sleeper guy, but I think I've seen enough this year to know the potential he could bring moving forward. I'm going to go with a guy that I loved since the training camp. I'm going to go with Will Mallory. Will Mallory, a very quiet guy. Probably he's not the best tight end on the roster, but he's shown potential to elevate the tight end room. He's sneaky fast and he has good hands, and I think you can utilize him very well when you bring a guy back like Anthony Richardson. I think he can take the offense to another level moving forward to next year. The game against Cincinnati and the game against Atlanta was probably his best game so far this year, and I think I've seen enough to show that if we get into a sticky moment and if Granson's not there, I want Will Mallory in the game. I think Will Mallory has the potential to be a very good weapon for Anthony Richardson moving forward, and he can be a good piece in the tight end group as well.
Yeah, I'm super excited for Will Mallory moving forward. And I think one of the most underrated parts for Will Mallory is the blocking. Like, because not a lot of people, I mean, like you saw him obviously, his ability to catch the ball, his ability to stretch the seams, all that kind of stuff. But was very, very surprised whenever he came in and he was kind of like underrated as a blocker. And moving forward, especially, with the tight end position kind of up in the air, we don't know what's going to happen with, Mo Alley Cox. We don't know what's going to happen with Ogletree. Your boy, twin Colin Granson now going into like his, final year of his deal. We don't really know how like that's going to play out. So, this is a question or this is a position that's really not as, obviously Jelani Wood's another one. Like we don't know like where that's going. And I mean, obviously we know the potential, but we haven't really seen it on the field, this year because of the injury. So the tight end position is not as locked down as what people think it is. And it's really open for, somebody to come in and make an impact. And I think Will Mallory has the talent to do that, whether or not, Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft with them taking Brock Bowers comes into play, we don't know. I would definitely be doing backflips if they landed Brock Bowers in this draft because he's a top 5 player on my board, as he should be on most people's.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, even if that was the case, I still think Will Mallory has a role on this team, and I think he has a chance to make an impact in 2024 and moving forward.
Hey man, hey look, I don't think there's any Colts fans that's opposed to bringing Brock Bowers to Indy. Just to
Oh no,
think
there are.
about the
I've seen
potential. That's kind of insane though. The
there
potential
are.
of what this offense is already, adding a number one tight end with Anthony Richardson. We're already a top 10 offense with Richardson on the field, but adding Bowers will push us to top 5, no question.
Yeah,
So I'm
he's a
looking forward to that, hands down, no question.
he's an
If
incredible
that was
player.
to happen, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
Your
definitely something.
hypothetical. I personally, I don't think him drop. I don't
Yeah.
think him. I don't see him dropping out the top 10. I know the tight end positional value. We'll get into that on draft stuff, but yeah, yeah. If it was to happen, yeah, I'm very excited.
Bang the anvil, man.
Yeah.
So we were looking forward to that. Let's go ahead and get to your last person on the offensive side for impacts this year?
Look, we've made it through now, what, 5 players? And we haven't mentioned probably the most impactful player on this offense, and that's Michael Pittman Jr. What are we doing? I mean, come on. You didn't think that we're not going to talk about, our boy Pitt here.
Save
Talking
the
about
best for last.
109 catches, almost 1,200 yards with a rookie Anthony Richardson and then Gardner Minshew. I mean, we're like, this is just more, no matter who the quarterback is, this guy just produces every year. And I know he's probably sick of the quarterback thing, but I think moving forward, we're in a good spot with that, with Richardson. But yeah, I mean, this guy just does everything, and he does everything the right way. Like, his work ethic is unbelievable. His competitiveness just, I mean, you see the way he attacks when he has the ball. I mean, the guy is so physical. He's a joy to watch, and he really is like the engine that this passing game needs. Like, I mean, you always want and need on most teams to have a player like Michael Pittman Jr. But for the Colts, he's absolutely crucial. He was a huge majority of their offense this year. And I think moving forward, you'll see him start getting into the end zone a lot more, especially with Richardson in the red zone, with teams keying in on his legs. It's going to leave one-on-one matchups for Michael Pittman Jr. on the outside. And as we know, he can eat those up in a heartbeat. So, yeah, 2023, Michael Pittman Jr. to me is the most impactful player on this entire offense.
Amen. Absolutely. Save the best for last. We seen it when he went out with the whole concussion situation, and
Yeah,
then he
it was
wasn't
a mess.
available. The offense just could not figure it out. And then the moment he came back, the
Well,
offense was clicking again. So it's
that,
like he shows you how impactful he can be on the field, and he showed you that he is the number one wide receiver. Even though a lot of people in the Colts fan base, some of them think that he isn't that material, but he shows you week in and week out that he's that guy.
he
No matter
absolutely
how
is.
no matter how you put it.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, moving forward, hopefully we re-sign him. I think even if we don't, he's going to be franchise tag. Michael Pittman's not going anywhere. And I think you still have the best is yet to come for him. So, when you get that explosive quarterback, that franchise quarterback that we have in Richardson back on the field, hopefully praying to every football god, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that he can stay on the field. If he's able to do that, the best is yet to come from Michael Pittman. You're going to see absolute fireworks out of that dude moving forward. I don't think we've seen his best, and if we haven't seen his best, and this year is kind of like the middle of the road for what Pittman can be, you're in a really really good spot with him as a wide receiver one in this league. So I'm super excited to see what he does next year with our starting quarterback.
Absolutely. Amen. Amen. Honorable mention I thought about putting in this conversation was Josh Downs. But I think he has a lot more in his bag than what we've seen, especially when we get Anthony Richardson back. So that is my honorable mention. But let's go ahead and move it to the defensive side. Three players that impacted the Colts this year in 2023. I'm going to start off with, of course, the hometown kid, Juju Brent was a dog. And, his rookie year on the map scene, boom, against the Ravens. His first game made an impact. But I think this year he was very scrappy, went up against some of the top receivers on the opposite side. He had some moments, he had some bright spots, he had some low spots, but I think there was more good than bad this year, in my opinion, from Brits, especially a game against Devontae Adams. You've seen it, even against Calvin Ridley, a guy that we thought was going to torture us all year. When Brents was on him, I think he had some good matchups against some star receivers this year. And, with age comes experience. So I think next year he's going to be a little bit more polished, a little bit more clean. Still going to be scrappy, but I think he's going to be very impactful this year and next year. But he's definitely one of my guys that I think was very impactful on the defensive side for the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, like, you saw the talent whenever he was on the field, and especially against that Raiders game with what he was doing to Devontae Adams in that game. That's really like where you can see, like, this dude can play in this league and he can play at a high level. And whenever you're, oh, I'm sorry, I got my freaking DoorDash. Could you try again? But whenever you look and you see the talent that he has, the physical talent, the toughness, the way he attacks the football. I mean, like this dude just tries to wreck people, whenever he tackles them. So hopefully, the injuries are kind of, and this is for the whole rookie class. I mean, this whole rookie class was like beat up with injuries and stuff like that. So yeah, if he's able to, grow a little bit even more, especially in the coverage, and be a little bit more disciplined, and they're able to address that other side, on him, he absolutely has the chance to be a lockdown corner in this league.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree 100%. Definitely shout out to Juju Brents. I'm going to go ahead and give my second player to that impacted the Colts defense. And I think my second guy, I'm going to go with, of course, the leader of the defense, Zaire Franklin. Zaire Franklin was a menace this year. One of the best tacklers in football. Definitely got robbed out of the Pro Bowl selections, but I do think he should be in the All Pro conversation as well. There's a lot of good linebackers in the league. I get that. But I think Zaire took a huge step up last year and this year. I think he's getting better year by year, and he showed you how impactful he is when he's on the field. He doesn't have to make a big splash. He doesn't have to catch a pick, doesn't have to force a fumble. His presence is very intimidating, and I think Zaire was very impactful on the Colts defense, leading those guys week in and week out. And he had a bunch of good hits, against some star players, especially the one against Derrick Henry that we all remember. Zaire was a dog this year, and I really think he was very impactful for the Colts this year, 2023.
Yeah, and not just impactful on the field, but impactful off the field as well, because he's the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. I think he's got as good a shot as any to win that award. So whenever you're able to impact on the field, like leading the league in tackles for so many weeks, and then not only that, but his impact off the field and in the communities is maybe just as important. And I think that's something we need to point out too when we talk about the impact that a player has. I think Zaire Franklin is the epitome of what it means to be an Indianapolis Colt on the field and his impact off the field as well. So that, he might be the most impactful player in the entire franchise, as far as just fully what he does, with this community, what he does on the field. Um, and yeah, I think the world of Zaire Franklin, and also in the media as well. Great podcast, great podcast. So he's even impactful in the media. So everything that dude does, he does at a high level. So shout out to Zaire Franklin.
Absolutely. Shout out to Ziggy, man. Shout out to Ziggy. So now we're going to turn it over to you. You got two players to give us that has been very impactful on the defensive side. We mentioned Brent. We mentioned Zaire. I'm pretty sure I know where you're going to go, but I'm
You
going to let
already
you
know
do
where
it.
I'm gonna go, man. I don't know if it's like the Chris Ballard, like we build from the trenches thing. I don't know. Like I talk about offensive linemen, I'm gonna talk about defensive linemen now. And to me, one of the most impactful, not just for the Colts, but league wide free agent signings this year, probably one of the most impactful free agent signings for any team. And that's Samson Ebukam.
Yes, sir.
Like, I mean, you're talking about a dude that comes in, new city, new team, has to learn where the train. I mean, because it's not just as easy as like, it's not Madden. Like, you don't just plug these guys in. They have to learn like, where am I driving to? Where's the facility? Where am I going to eat at night? Where am I going to live? There's a lot going on when you make a move to a new city like that, into a new team. And for him to come in and not only that, but learn all that stuff and to produce at the level he produced on the field, he took this pass rush to a whole different level. I mean, he was the best pass rusher outside of, DeForest Buckner on this entire team. And, he's going to be crucial moving forward. And it looks like right now that contract that he signed is an absolute steal for what he's able to produce on the field. So whenever teams start keying in, I still think they need a running mate alongside him. I think they need an elite pass rusher. Maybe Quiddy Pay develops into that this year. We don't know, but right now it looks like he's just more strictly like a run stuffing. I mean, and he does that at a very, very high level. He is a fantastic guy in the run game, but they still need a guy with some juice off the other side of Ebukam. But I think once they get that figured out, it's bombs away for this defensive line. That's the only thing they're missing is that top tier, TJ Watt, Miles Garrett level pass rusher, which to be fair, a lot of teams are missing that type of guy. But if the Colts can find a way to address that situation, then I think Ebukam, to free up those one on ones, I think there's even another level he can hit. He played phenomenal, and it was such a great free agent signing. And he was a big reason why they broke the franchise record for sacks this year.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. The dude, Ibrahim's like his presence, his debut game is like he blew me away. That's the best
Yeah,
thing. That's the best way I can put it. I was just like amazed at how good that he was coming off that edge. Like last year was a struggle. We all can attest to that. But bringing in Ibukam, I think every Colts fan was excited to see him added to the roster, and his presence was felt week in and week out. And he's only going to get better the more pieces we add on that defense and the continuity. I think he's going to be a wrecking force moving forward. He might be a Colt, for the rest of his career. If the way he playing, like I'm pretty sure whatever he asked for, Ballard might give it to him. But I definitely think Ibukam definitely was a dog this year and very impactful for sure, 100%.
yeah. And obviously, I'm sticking with the defensive line here. We're going with the most obvious player on the entire team for because when you think about the Indianapolis Colts and you think about who the best player is on this entire roster, some people might say Jonathan Taylor, which wouldn't be a bad guess. But to me, it's DeForest Buckner, bro. Like he is the single biggest impactful player, not really just, because I told you Michael Pittman's the most impactful player on the offense. DeForest Buckner might be the most impactful player on the entire team. Um, I mean, like he is that good. He is an all pro level defensive tackle. And for some reason, he keeps getting left off. They didn't get a Pro Bowl. He didn't get, and that comes with winning games and, being on national television because that's a popularity contest. But make no mistake about it, there were not many more people in the NFL that were more impactful along the defensive line than DeForest Buckner was this year for the Colts. I mean, this dude is, it, I don't know what else to say about him that hasn't been said. I mean, he is just an incredible football player. He wrecks games. He can single-handedly change the momentum of a game. And that's very rare for a defensive tackle. There's only very few of those guys in the league that do it from that position because most of the time you're looking at edge rushers that are like that. But to be able to perform like that, I mean, you're putting him up there with, Chris Jones. You're putting him up there with Aaron Donald. Like these are the names that he is in line with at that position. And the fact that he plays for the Colts, there might not be a bigger guy that makes an impact on this entire roster than what DeForest Buckner does for this defense.
Amen. I agree. DeForest Buckner, even when Grover Stewart was out, I feel like the run game on the defensive side was a struggle, but DeForest was still a presence felt, even without the addition of Grover Stewart helping him out. I feel like Buckner was still making that impact and still getting through when times when it was like we need Grover back. I feel like Buckner was still that missing piece. And he week in and week out, Buckner was out there causing double teams and still getting through, just being the impact week in and week out. So he definitely is, underrated and underappreciated as well. You mentioned Donald, and I still feel like Simmons is one of those guys as well.
Yeah,
But Buckner is definitely one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL, and definitely should have been a Pro Bowler and should be an All Pro for sure as well. But it is a tough race. I agree 100%. So shout out to DeForest Buckner being an impact player. He's always going to be that as long as he's in Indianapolis for
every
sure.
year, every year.
Every year.
And like, of course, like you want to go through this list and maybe name some like other guys that make an impact, but like I said, we can't make a list of impactful players for the Colts
It
and
wouldn't be
leave off
right.
DeForest Buckner. Like
It wouldn't be
you
right.
just you can't do it.
That's right, man. It would be right if you leave him off. And I'm pretty sure. I hope the last guy you say is going to be the guy that I'm thinking. If not, we're going to have to put him in there anyway. But my last guy for sure, I think we all can agree to this, is Julian Blackman. The impact Julian Blackman had this year was It was amazing because he was definitely. I felt like he was on a road to making the Pro Bowl if he would have stayed healthy. He was out there being. He was a ball hawk, making play after play. Of course, he wasn't perfect, but I think he was definitely an impact that was missed when he was out. And we was like, if Julian was there, we would have had the ball. So he definitely was a ball hawk that we missed on the field. I feel like he's gotten progressively better year by year. And this was probably one of his best years so far in his career, and it sucked to see him go down. But his impact was definitely felt, and it was missed when he was gone. But Julian Blackman definitely was my last guy that I had to put on there because whenever he was on the field, I just knew he was gonna make a play. I just knew he was gonna make a play no matter what it was. So shout out to Julian Blackman. That's definitely got to be my last selection for impact player. Let's hope we're thinking the same person for your last selection. So I'm all ears.
We might be, and or we might not. This is actually a
it's
little,
it's a tough one.
yeah. Well, like because there's so many guys, and of course, like you want to go like you don't want to leave a guy like Kenny Moore off the list, right?
Right. Exactly.
That's probably who you were thinking I was going
Yep.
with, but it's actually not. So I was switching up a little bit because I think this guy had such an impact um, on this field that it actually kind of rippled through the organization a little bit, and that's EJ Speed.
Yes.
Um, because EJ Speed, let me tell you, this guy was so good whenever he was on the field, and they had such a hard time keeping him off the field that was a big reason why they let Shaq Leonard leave, and they let
Right.
Shaq Leonard, they cut Shaq, let him go find another thing because as much as they love Shaq, obviously with the injuries and stuff like that, they could not keep EJ Speed off the field with the way he was playing. And I think this is a guy moving forward now. Like he has that role. If he can take that next leap, as far as like coverage goes, because I still think that's just the one place that he really needs to improve on. But if he can make that leap, he might be one of the better linebackers in football. This is a dude that is extremely great at diagnosing run schemes. He's extremely great at attacking the line of scrimmage. He's a great tackler. You don't see this guy miss many tackles. And a lot of the times, whenever you see him tackle somebody, he's blowing them up. Like
Oh
he
yeah.
is, I mean, just shot out of a bullet. And or shot out of a gun. Obviously, you can't shoot out of a
Cannon.
bullet. That's not a thing. You can't do that. But I mean, his last name, I mean, it's Speed for a reason. I mean, this dude's got it. And uh, I just, I think that now that he fully has that role, they know he's going to be the linebacker of the future for this team, along with Zaire. Then, his impact was felt throughout this season on the field.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree. EJ Speed was definitely a very impactful player, and there's a bunch of guys we can go down the list.
Oh yeah,
There's
and yeah,
there's
like
guys that we
honorable
missed, like
honorable mention Kenny Moore.
Kenny Moore. We
Honorable
can
mention.
mention
I'm not.
Jalen Jones. There's a
Yeah.
lot of guys that we can mention that had an
I
impact
just
for
think
sure.
Kenny Moore, man, like the bounce back year he had, I think he's the best slot cornerback in football. I really
Absolutely,
do, and it would be a crime
absolutely.
to leave him off the impact list. But I mean, yeah, I really, really, really hope they find a way to re-sign Kenny Moore
For
because
sure.
I don't want to see him in another uniform that's not a Colts
Just
uniform.
what look right.
Yeah, it's just not right. So yeah, Kenny Moore, fantastic season, super impactful player. And I think, like I said, if Juju makes a leap, if they find another cornerback, if they get that safety, if they get this secondary figured out, it's really going to allow him to shine even more than he already does.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, he's just a phenomenal talent at that slot corner position.
Absolutely. Definitely honorable mention Kenny Moore. We had one for offense. We had to do one for defense. But I think in general, after all naming all these impact players, it just shows you the growth that we've took from the season before. Everybody going back to what they're used to doing production wise, even no matter how much you want to complain about Gus Bradley and his scheme, his scheme got a lot of these guys to hit a level that that we weren't expecting. That's why I said they exceeded expectations going into this year. Of course, it still needs to be fixed a little bit, but I think his scheme gets these guys to get a little bit more handsy, and things like that, and it gets line drive contacts for like these hits like Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed. So I think it's athleticism wise when it comes to Gus Bradley and his scheme, and a lot of these guys are very athletic and very talented. So you're gonna see plays like that happen when it comes to Gus Bradley's scheme. So when you see him come back, a lot of people are not liking it, but I think you know the players that you put in the scheme is going to have that type of production. So definitely very impactful players on both sides of the field. Hopefully, we're looking for growth next year. And we mentioned EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin, but this is linebacker you when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know one bad linebacker in Chris Ballard era that has underperformed. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to see who we gonna get next. Honestly, so I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
there's a good chance he probably drafts a guy this year, fourth, fifth round.
Hmm.
That guy's going to end up being an all-pro caliber linebacker. I mean, you could say whatever you want about him as far as wide receivers and pass rushers and all that kind of stuff. Man can draft some linebackers.
Oh yeah, he
He
can
was
sign them
around.
too. Shout out to
He was
Ronnie
around
Harrison.
some great ones. He was around some great ones in Chicago. So he knows what to look for.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to this offseason, man. The offseason's here for the Colts. We got a few more weeks of this playoffs, and then the pain will be over. But the offseason's here. We're looking forward to it. You guys let us know in the comment section your impact players if you haven't already. But we appreciate you guys for tuning in for today's episode. We'll be back for more moving forward. I got more ideas that I'm going to let you guys know, but you guys got to have your notifications on to find out when it's going to happen. But we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Stay warm. Don't hurt yourself shoveling the snow if you have snow in your area. Put the salt down, please. But that is all we got for you guys today. That's Landon. This is Culture Shock, and we will see you guys next time.